Hi, I'm Lemsile Pamela Ngubane, and this is the Entity Dynamics podcast. This is part two of the career conceptualization um, and development video. I actually thought I was going to have two parts for conceptualization, but I figured I actually covered everything. So I want to move into development now. Um, so now that you've conceptualized your career, you know what you want to do. You want to be a vet. Um, so you now have to develop your career. Now you're taking like practical steps towards developing your career. So the first one, obviously, you've done your research, you know what universities or tertiary institutions offer veterinary sciences. Obviously, preferably, you'll find one close to home if you want to stay at home, or if you're interested in being a boarder in residence at a university, cool. If you can find one overseas, and that's where you want to be overseas, and you can organize the funds for that, fantastic, whatever. So you need to find a tertiary institution that's going to take you. Then you need to figure out what subjects you need to do. Now, if you're already in grade 10, you've chosen your subjects, chances are you would have chosen things like physics, maths, natural science, because you're into that stuff already. So those subjects would put you in good stead to being a vet. Now they're going to tell you how many points you need, what kind of marks you need to get into that field of study. So now you have to work on that. You know, if you need to get extra lessons or tutoring, or extra help from your teachers to get your marks up to where you want to be, you're going to have to start focusing on that. Okay. That's probably the most important thing if you're a high school student in developing your career, you know. So then you're going to go to your tertiary institution, you're going to do your best to get the marks so that when you have to apply for a job and they want to see your transcripts, you know, they can see that you're someone who's really applied themselves and you know what you want to do, you know. But then also, like I said, you might decide you're going to specialize in a particular field. So that's also something you have to think about while you're studying. Like, okay, I want to be a pet chiropractor. So you find, do they offer that course at the place that you're at, the university that you're at, or am I going to have to go somewhere else? Then you start to plan for that, you know. Maybe also as a way of increasing your marketability as a someone who is going to be employed in a veterinary clinic, because, you know, you're going to have to start somewhere like that where you earn your stripes, you know. You maybe do internships during the holidays, or you volunteer at a vet clinic or something, things that you can put on your CV so that you can show your prospective employer that, you know, you're serious about this. Then you finish your studies. If you're specializing. Then, you know, you also, while you're specializing or in your final year, you start reaching out to different potential employers. You know, you maybe volunteer with them in the holidays or whatever. Then you get into the workplace. You know, you've done your groundwork, you know what you want to do, and now you're working. So obviously, you know, when you're developing and conceptualizing your career, you know that you're probably going to live, if you take care of yourself properly, keep good company, etc., you know, past 70, you know, 70s, 80s. So you're going to have a pretty long career span, you know. Keep in mind that there's always room for growth in your career, and that you should always be on the lookout for changes in yourself in terms of how you see yourself in your career, how you see yourself in the world, you know. So let's say, okay, you know, you decided to be a pet chiropractor, you're loving it, and you're constantly learning, you're doing your research, you know, maybe you'll do an extra course of study just to increase your knowledge on the subject. Then maybe you might find yourself interested in research in the field, you know. So now you're not necessarily wanting to be just a practitioner, or maybe you want to stop practicing altogether and just dedicate yourself to research, you know. So you have to be open to the fact that probably as time goes on, you might be interested in a change of career, or you might, a development, a change in the course of your career, or developing in other areas of that field. Or you might find yourself completely interested in something else that you might do simultaneously or instead of something. So let's say, at some point you think, actually, maybe being a wildlife vet or a zoo vet or a film set vet actually could be quite interesting and something I want to look into. Or maybe I want to be a consultant. You can do those types of things. So I'm just saying that as human beings, we do grow, we do evolve, and, we want to expand, and we should, what if you decide that you actually want to do something else that's completely outside of veterinary sciences? Maybe you've always, at the back of your mind, really been interested in teaching kids or something, or being a school teacher. Maybe that's something you also really enjoyed. You could see how you can work that into your career, because it's something that fulfills you. You want to do it. It makes you happy, so maybe you can take what you've learned as a vet and offer it as something to kids so that you can cultivate the next generation of vets. Who knows? Okay. So, going back to the whole thing of a niche, and also your development of your career, there's certain careers as well, like, for example, fashion or art. Like if you want to be a painter, for example, when you're conceptualizing your career, okay, you know what kind of painter you want to be, what kind of medium you want to work in. Maybe you want to be a sculptor who works with clay. You want to be a sculptor who carves out marble, like high level stuff like that. You want to be a sculptor who uses trash to make sculptures that are fantastic and show how you can alchemize garbage into beautiful objects, because you've got this vision for yourself. There are some careers that I think personally, as much as you would want to be that thing, certain industries are extremely difficult to get into, especially when you're coming fresh out of tertiary and you want to get into it. So I would suggest, if you want to be an artist, I would suggest study art, obviously, study art history, and then study the business of art. Study the business of art. Same with fashion. Study the business of fashion. Anything in the creative industry, study the business of that thing. And then work in the market and business side of it. So do your art, be an artist, but to get into the industry, I would suggest you work in the business side of it. So go work for an art gallery, go work for an art dealer. Establish yourself in the industry. Then when you are established in the industry, you're making your networks, you're making your connections, then you start to market yourself, because now you know the business and you know the connections that you need, and you know how everything works. You're not coming in green. You're not going to be open for exploitation, for someone to screw with you, steal your ideas, pretend that they are theirs, which is what happens to a lot of artists, young artists, musicians, writers, whatever. They work for someone, they think this person's got their back, that person steals their ideas and pretends they are theirs. And then whose word are they going to take? Whose word are they going to take? Yours as the newbie, or the word of the established person, So that's my suggestion. You work in the business of that artistic creative industry, however many years, you set yourself up, and then you start to market yourself as an artist. You never stop with your craft and developing your craft and honing your craft. And then you start to market yourself as an artist. Then you're established, you're in the industry, and you're living your dream as an artist, but much more sheltered from the exploitation, which is so rife in these industries. That's my take. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this is helpful. Please let me know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. And goodbye. See you in the next video. Ciao.